Welcome back, Shloud Music. I'm Mr. Sutherland, and in today's lesson, we'll be reviewing the basics between melody and chord progressions. Let's get started. Here's an example of piano music. We have the treble clef in the top and the bass clef at the bottom. This is called the grand staff. Now, normally you will play anything that's in the treble clef portion with the right hand and anything in the bass clef portion with the left hand. Usually the right hand or the treble clef, also known as the G clef, will contain the melody, and the bass clef, also known as the F clef, will contain the chord progression or the accompaniment for the melody. What you can tell already, I bet, is that this is actually a C major scale in one octave, from the low C up to the high C. It's not going back down, but it is going from a low to high end of the scale. What you also may notice is that it says C major right here. Our key signature, which is supposed to be in this space right after the treble clef and right after the bass clef, there's nothing labeled with sharps or flats, which tells us that we are reading everything right now in C major. Let's try labeling now the pitches in the solfege form, as if we were reading it as a vocalist. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and do. Now let's try singing this solfege all together, starting on this pitch. Do. In rhythm if you can. Let's see if you guys can kind of see what I'm doing here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now let's try singing the same melody with the solfege again, but also with the Kodály hand signs. If you don't know the hand signs, take a moment to look at the poster, the big long one between these two whiteboards. 1, 2, ready, and do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Let's take a moment to kind of review what the bass clef notes should look like. Now there's a poster by the door that shows the notes already that are in the spaces and on the lines. But let's do that together, okay? G, B, D, F, and A. A, C, E, and G. So now that we've labeled all the notes, we have to find out where middle C is. We want to know where middle C is because that's a basic separation point between treble clef and bass clef on the keyboard. Now, bass clef is a lower portion of the keyboard, or the left-hand side of the keyboard, just below C4. C4 is actually middle C. And to identify where middle C is here, we got to label it right above, just above, with one ledger line on the bass clef. Just right here, let me show you. And there's middle C right at the top. Now that we've found middle C in bass clef, we gotta find out where middle C is in treble clef. Well, middle C in bass clef is right here, right? Well, middle C in treble clef is in the same exact area, just below the bottom line, or the E line of treble clef. Right here. There's do. There's middle right C. And do is always C. Well, at least in C major. Well, do can also be G if you're in G major. Do could also be A if you're in A minor. What about if you're in D mixolydian? Then D would be our do. Let's try labeling now how the solfege works out in our scale in our chord progression. Let's start with this very first triad. Now remember, a chord has to be more than 2 pitches played at the same time. Not the same pitch, not in unison, not more than 1 C, but multiple notes above C, so vertically stacked. And of course, this is a triad, so it contains 3 pitches played at the same time for our chord. There's our first do, which is C. If you guys remember from the last example, do is that second bottom space, which is do or C, right? Mi, sol. And if you remember from intro to piano, we did arpeggio. Well, this is just like an arpeggio, except rather than playing it in a melody kind of style, do, mi, do. We play all those 3 notes at the same time. And I can't do that with my voice. Which is why I play a piano or other instruments that can. Let's take a moment real quick to label the other chords as well. Fa, la, do. And of course, do, mi, sol, because that's the same exact thing as the first chord. Now that we've labeled our chords and our melody in solfege, let's try labeling everything now with the actual pitches that you will find in piano music or on the keyboard, right? So the very first pitch in a triad or a chord is actually the bottom bass note. It's the lowest note in a chord that sustains the rest of the sound, but it's going to sound really high or really low, or in general. Well, in this case, our tonic or our root of the chord is the very bottom note. I didn't do any kind of inversion. And what an inversion means is that I flip the chord around. Don't get confused. Just know that this is C and it's going to be Do, or our first chord for C, E, G, or a C major chord. And now we have a F, A, C, or Fa, La, Do, which is an F major chord. And then we end back on C major, which is the last chord in the progression. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Notice the tick again, because it's the octave higher. E, E, G, F, A, C, E, G. This is what that chord progression is going to sound like when you place your fingers in the triad position. This is our C arpeggio with the pinky on C, middle finger on E, and thumb on G. You should have your left hand playing now, as this is the bass clef portion of the grand staff. You play all three of those notes together at the same time, and this creates our C major chord. Let's try the next chord, which is the F major chord. We're going to move our pinky now to F, our middle finger to A, and our thumb on C. Again, this is a triad position, and just press all three fingers down together to play all three notes. Move your hand back to C major with your pinky on C, middle finger on E, and thumb on G. And that's the whole progression. Here is the melody in the treble clef, which is the top portion of the grand staff, played with our right hand. Again, this is a C major scale, but this time there's a specific rhythm to it. We're going to go at adagio tempo, which is about right here. 1, 2, ready, and C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Let's try it this time with the solfege, starting on Do. 1, 2, sing and play. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Let's try playing the chord progression now in rhythm. And those were half notes, so we're playing each progression 2 beats each. Let's start right here at this tempo. 1, 2, ready, and C, F, C. Notice that each chord got 2 beats. 1, 2, play it again. C, F, C. Okay, so here's the hard part. Playing both parts together at the same time, all by yourself. Don't be afraid, don't be scared. You're going to play it very slowly. Again, the chords are in your left hand and the melody is in your right hand. We're going to go very slow. Play with me at this tempo. 1, 2, ready.